Putin had hoped the Ukraine capital Kyiv would be under his control within days of entering Ukraine, but after 17 days of conflict, the capital remains under Ukraine's control. Joining me from Lviv in Ukraine is CNN reporter Salma Abdel Aziz. Salma, thank you so much for joining us. What's the latest there where you are?
Well, it looks very much like the Russian offensive on this country is widening. It's intensifying. We're seeing a new push towards the West. Places that were previously safe are now in the crosshairs. And of course, the biggest fear, the biggest concern is for the capital, for Kyiv itself, where we understand that Russian tanks are just over 15 miles away from the city limits. Western intelligence saying Russian troops are tightening their noose around the capital, preparing potentially to besiege it. A few days ago, satellite imagery showed a convoy, a military convoy 40 miles long of Russian artillery, Russian tanks, Russian troops. That now appears, according again to Western intelligence, to have dispersed. And the fear is that Russian troops are preparing to besiege the capital. Night has fallen here, and this is the time when you really feel the fear set in. Curfews are imposed. It's the time when you hear air raid sirens, potentially, that force families underground into basements. This is absolutely the nightmare scenario for all the families here.
Absolutely. And look, on another front, the Russians are being stretched, aren't they? We mentioned in the intro that Vladimir Putin expected to be in Kyiv and in control within days. We're moving towards the middle part of the third week of this war, and they are having problems.
If you speak to American officials, if you speak to Ukrainian officials, they absolutely agree with you. They're going to point to specific numbers. Nearly 10%, apparently, according again to these intelligence officials, nearly 10% of Russian military assets destroyed here in Ukraine. 3 top generals killed, hundreds of convoys. And of course, you have wounded and killed Russian soldiers. We've seen some of our CNN crews, the bodies of those soldiers strewn along the front lines. So yes, absolutely, this is devastating for the Russian military, but that's not the only consequence here. You have the toughest sanctions ever rolled out against Russia also going into place. Hundreds of businesses pulling away, pulling out of Russia, banks as well. It is absolutely dire for the people of Russia just as much as it is for the government of Russia. But the question is, does that deter President Vladimir Putin? The answer to that so far is no. But we are starting to see signs of progress when it comes to peace talks. President Vladimir Zelensky said that his Russian counterparts have stopped issuing ultimatums and started talking. I'm paraphrasing President Zelensky there, but that was the message. But what you're hearing from all European leaders is before any talks take place, a ceasefire needs to go into effect because every day counts. Every day means more people made homeless, means more people losing their lives.
Absolutely. It's horrifying, people all around the world, every scene. But let's hope that we're moving in that direction. The pressure is obviously mounting on Putin, and of course the oligarchs around him and those that have propped up his regime are under enormous pressure as well.
Absolutely. This is pressure that this country has never seen before. Again, the toughest sanctions ever rolled out against Russia. President Biden essentially saying that he wants to make Russia a pariah state, cutting off all normal trade relations. We're talking about access to banks and also the ability to sell goods like vodka. This is devastating for an economy that had already been hit by sanction after sanction after sanction. But it's very difficult to measure the impact of that inside of Russia. And I'll tell you why. That's because, of course, the Russian government tightly controls the media there on the ground. There are censorship laws. And for those who have demonstrated, because we have seen, according to human rights groups and according to our teams on the ground, we have seen protests in Moscow. But human rights groups say those who show dissent, those who oppose President Putin, they could face arrest, they could face detention, they could face harassment. There is absolutely an atmosphere of fear inside Russia. Look, you're looking at 2 countries right now, truly 2 countries where civilians are suffering. There are, of course, disproportionate amounts of suffering, but this is a war that is so much wider than the border of Ukraine.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Salma. Appreciate you coming on the program.